The Shedeur conversation in Cleveland's fascinating right now.
Okay.
Because I think the local media is something to watch as far as like the talk radio guys. They could say whatever. You've got local beat reporters in there, and the fan base all seemingly wants Shedeur.
And what I loved about Shedeur yesterday is the way he drove this team. He commanded the offense with poise. And he operated it the way it needed to be operated.
Whether or not this was Stefanski just kind of mailing it in and wanting to go to a different team, when you get Shedeur to basically not throw the ball deep at all and make that your game plan, it was a real game plan. You might have hated the game plan. I did. I hated the game plan.
Like, he hasn't sacrificed his authenticity while not burying anybody seemingly in the process.
Yeah.
Like, I think he has handled it. Now, do the Cleveland Browns move forward with what they've seen potential from the rookie quarterback? I guess that's the big question, but it's like there's rightful positive conversation about Shedeur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns, because to D-Butt's point, it's must watch.
The Cleveland Browns are sitting on a powder keg right now, and Shedeur Sanders, he's the spark that could either blow this entire franchise into a new era of relevance or fizzle out like every other quarterback who's walked through those doors in the last 2 decades. Pat McAfee and his crew didn't just discuss Shedeur Sanders this week, they dissected the entire phenomenon. The media circus, the authenticity, the upside, the baggage, and most importantly, whether Cleveland has finally found their guy after years of wandering in the quarterback wilderness. Like the video if you love Shedeur, comment SS100 if you want to see him play. Let's break down why the conversation around Shedeur has completely shifted from reality TV sideshow to legitimate franchise cornerstone. Remember the beginning of the season? Shedeur Sanders rolled into Cleveland with cameras following his every move, giving interviews at car dealerships, living that reality TV life like it was just another day in the Sanders household. The content was entertaining, sure, but it wasn't exactly what Browns fans wanted from their potential franchise quarterback. Pat McAfee's show captured this evolution perfectly. They watched it happen in real time. The shift, the maturity, the understanding that if you want to be the guy in Cleveland, you can't just be good on the field. You have to embody what that city needs.
Honest, the Browns played better than we thought they were going to play yesterday.
They did play better than we thought they were going to play. It feels like it's already been a frustrating morning of what.
Shedeur became what Cleveland needed him to become without sacrificing who he fundamentally is. That's not easy for a 22-year-old kid who's been in the spotlight his entire life, who grew up with reality TV cameras documenting his family's journey, who has an entire production company built around his brand. But he did it anyway. The McAfee crew acknowledged this wasn't just about football anymore. It was about reading the room, understanding the weight of the Browns' quarterback jersey, and acting accordingly. Shedeur hasn't buried anybody in press conferences. He hasn't thrown teammates under the bus. He hasn't pointed fingers when things went wrong.
One thing, though, and Coach, by the way, is like the 7th Coach Riz shout-out, but you buy his burgers, you get a lot of shout-outs, I guess.
True.
Coach Riz has been harping on this for weeks, the idea that his...
Instead, he's handled himself like a 10-year veteran, answering questions with poise, taking accountability, and showing the kind of leadership that makes franchises believe. Let's talk about what actually matters, what happens between the white lines. Shedeur Sanders went up against a Buffalo Bills defense that's savvy, opportunistic, and loaded with veterans who know how to make rookie quarterbacks uncomfortable. This wasn't a cupcake matchup. This was a legitimate test. The grades came in from across the media landscape, and the consensus was clear: solid B performance. Not perfect, not flawless, but impressive given the circumstances.
I'm going to give him a B because there was a lot to like about this performance. I saw way more positive.
What stood out most was Shedeur's toughness. He took a hit that lacerated his pinky finger, and instead of letting it derail his performance, he got it fixed and came right back. Skip Bayless emphasized this point. At Colorado for 2 years, Sanders took unholy punishment and kept getting up throwing darts. That's franchise quarterback DNA right there. Shedeur drove that Browns offense with precision. 69 yards in 8 plays for a touchdown, 65 yards in 13 plays for a field goal, 62 yards in 14 plays for another score. These weren't fluky drives where everything broke right. These were methodical, well-executed offensive possessions that showed command and understanding. Yes, there were 2 interceptions, but let's provide context here, because not all turnovers are created equal. The first pick hit Judkins in both hands on a choice route. Was it slightly behind him? Sure. But one analyst on the panel made a crucial point about NFL expectations and million-dollar catches. These are professional receivers making serious money. Catches that aren't perfectly placed still need to be made at this level. What mattered more than the mistakes was the response. Each interception, Shedeur didn't shrink. He didn't lose confidence. He came right back and led scoring drives. That's franchise quarterback mentality. That's the kind of resilience that gives organizations confidence they've found their guy. Here's where things get really interesting. Shedeur Sanders isn't just succeeding, he's succeeding in spite of organizational chaos that would have destroyed lesser prospects.
Mine, Pro Football Focus, even last week, ranked his receiving core dead last in the National Football League. Ranked his offensive line dead last in the National Football League.
Think about that for a second. Pro Football Focus ranked Cleveland's receiving core dead last in the NFL. Dead last. Their offensive line also ranked dead last. So Shedeur is operating with the worst supporting cast at the 2 most critical positions for quarterback success, and he's still moving the football and putting points on the board. Then there's the Kevin Stefanski situation, which has become increasingly awkward as the seasons progressed. Multiple reports suggest Stefanski didn't want to draft Shedeur. He wanted to stick with other options, but owner Jimmy Haslam pulled the trigger on Sanders in the 5th round and eventually forced Stefanski to play him.
He did not want to draft Shedeur at all in the 5th round or the 6th or the 12th or the 15th round.
Think about that dynamic. Your head coach didn't want you. Your offensive coordinator actively worked against getting you on the roster. And somehow you're supposed to walk into that building every day and perform at an elite level while developing a working relationship with people who didn't believe in you from day one. Oh, and let's not forget the wrong wristband incident. In a league where details matter more than anything, where every second is accounted for and every piece of equipment is triple-checked, somehow Shedeur was given the wrong play-calling wristband during a game. One analyst captured the absurdity perfectly, asking if anyone had ever heard of such a thing happening. The NFL is the most detailed business in sports. From the moment the bus leaves to every single bill, everything is accounted for. There's no way something like that should happen unless there's serious organizational dysfunction. And still, through all of it, Shedeur keeps showing up and balling out. Pat McAfee's show made a crucial point that often gets overlooked in traditional football analysis. Marketability and star power matter. The NFL is an entertainment business, and teams that understand this have a massive advantage in building their brand and attracting talent. Right now, the Cleveland Browns are must-watch television for the first time in years, not because of their record, not because they're making a playoff push, but because people want to see what Shedeur Sanders does next.
Garrett on the sack hunt and Shedeur Sanders on the offensive side. So if you're running a business, is that what you want? Is that what you don't want? I think it's a good thing for the Cleveland Browns.
Myles Garrett is hunting sacks on defense. Shedeur Sanders is slinging it on offense. That's a formula that sells tickets, generates television ratings, and makes casual fans tune in on Sunday afternoon. From a pure business perspective, that's invaluable. And if Shedeur continues developing, if he takes that next step and becomes a legitimate top 15 quarterback in this league, you're not just talking about a good player, you're talking about a megastar leading your franchise, someone who moves merchandise, fills stadiums, and makes your organization nationally relevant. All while paying him 5th-round pick money for at least 3 years. That's insane value if it works out. As Shedeur's star has risen, Kevin Stefanski's seat has gotten exponentially hotter. The 4th down decisions have been questionable at best, catastrophic at worst. The special teams have been a complete disaster all season, and most damningly, Stefanski hasn't developed a single quarterback during his entire tenure in Cleveland. Baker Mayfield looked lost under Stefanski before flourishing in Tampa. Deshaun Watson's decline accelerated in Cleveland's system, and now, despite Shedeur's obvious talent, there are legitimate questions about whether Stefanski is the right coach to maximize that potential. The wrong wristband incident became symbolic of larger organizational issues. How does that even happen? In what universe does an NFL head coach allow his rookie quarterback, who's already facing an uphill battle, to take the field with incorrect play-calling information? It's either incompetence or something more sinister, and neither option inspires confidence. Cleveland's front office faces a critical decision this offseason. They have their quarterback. That question appears answered. But do they have the right infrastructure around him to succeed? Do they trust Stefanski to develop Shedeur and build an offense that maximizes his strengths? Multiple analysts on both shows suggested it might be time for a change. Stefanski has had multiple quarterbacks, multiple systems, multiple chances. Nothing has worked. With Shedeur showing legitimate franchise potential, can Cleveland afford to waste his development years with a coach who didn't believe in him from the start? We can't discuss Cleveland's quarterback situation without addressing the massive, guaranteed money-shaped elephant in the room, Deshaun Watson. He's still on the roster, he's still getting paid, and that deal is still one of the worst deals in NFL history, especially considering how things have played out. But here's the reality. Deshaun Watson is not the future in Cleveland. That ship has sailed. The organization made a catastrophic mistake giving him that fully guaranteed deal, and now they're stuck paying for it while building around someone else. Shedeur Sanders represents hope. Watson represents the past, and every week that Shedeur proves he belongs in this league, that contrast becomes more stark. The silver lining, fifth-round picks are cheap. Even with Deshaun Watson's dead money on the books, Cleveland can build a competitive roster around Sanders without breaking the bank at the quarterback position for the next several years. That's a competitive advantage if they use it wisely. So let's answer the central question. Is Shedeur Sanders a franchise quarterback? Based on what we've seen through his first several starts, the answer is increasingly looking like yes. Not because he's been perfect, not because he's already Mahomes, but because he's shown all the intangibles that matter: leadership, resilience, poise under pressure, and the ability to elevate his play in critical moments. He's operating with the worst receiving core in football and the worst offensive line in football, and he's still moving the ball and putting points on the board. He's dealing with organizational dysfunction that would crush most rookies, and he's handling it with maturity beyond his years.
One analyst summed it up perfectly when discussing where quarterbacks typically go in Cleveland versus what Shedeur has managed to accomplish despite that history. The fact that he's thriving in an environment known as a quarterback graveyard speaks volumes about his potential.
Know that, but for him to thrive in this environment, for that team and have a bright future, whether it's going to be in Cleveland or not, he has proven that he can be a #1 in this league.
The potential is there. The arm talent is there. The mental makeup is there. Now it's about Cleveland putting the right pieces around him and giving him a legitimate chance to succeed. Pat McAfee's show captured something important. This isn't just about football statistics. It's about star power, marketability, leadership, and whether a franchise can build something sustainable around a young quarterback. Shedeur Sanders checks all those boxes. The McAfee crew, Skip Bayless, and analysts across the league are starting to see the same thing. This kid has something special. Despite the cameras, despite the family name, despite the organizational chaos, despite everything working against him, Shedeur Sanders is showing franchise quarterback traits. And that's why Pat McAfee and the entire NFL media landscape are turning their heads. Because when a fifth-round pick walks into the league's quarterback graveyard and starts showing signs of life, that's a story worth watching. That's a story worth believing in. Cleveland might have finally found their guy, and if they play their cards right, this could be the beginning of something special.